She used to be a familiar face on this set. Then economist Armine went from analyzing government data to helping make it, as she took a role with the federal government in Ottawa. She's now the Atkinson Foundation's Fellow on the Future of Workers, and we're pleased that it gives us a chance to catch up with Armine, who has not been in this studio in a year. In a year.
A whole year.
So it's long overdue to have you back.
It's so great to be back.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. We've missed you. Where have you been?
Where have I been? I've been in Ottawa. You know that, right?
Yeah.
I've been in Ottawa. I was hugely thankful for the opportunity to be invited by the Deputy Minister of Employment and Social Development Canada, which now no longer exists. There's been a cabinet shakeup on how the department is configured. That department asked me to come and help them on two things. Number one, we had a feminist government that was going to deliver something called GBA+,
which
templates
stands for
gender-based analysis, and the plus stands for all the pluses beyond gender.
Okay.
And they knew they didn't know how to do it. And I was there to help the pens of this process understand why they were doing it in the first place and what we as taxpayers and citizens can get out of having this analysis made public in the budget, which was the goal. And what we can get out of it is showing how our money is being spent to reduce inequalities and showing what programs work the most effectively to do that.
How was the experience?
I loved that. The better part of it was the second part I was asked to come in to help with. Every cycle, every department does something called medium-term planning. And it's basically to look at how the programs that we do fund, which in the case of ESDC, Employment and Social Development Canada, account for 7% of GDP. It's a lot of money.
That's a lot.
How those programs are fit for purpose looking ahead at the challenges that are coming. And I had been working on the changing nature of work for a little while. They asked me to come in and say, have we thought of everything we need to think about? So I worked with all sorts of staff and the Deputy Minister on what are the things coming at us in the next 4 or 5 years that we might need to think, how do we change our programs, given that it's 7% of GDP? And that was just the job of a lifetime. I was blown away by that process.
Very intellectually stimulating and all of the above. Everything you can
Not only
imagine.
intellectually stimulating, the people that I worked with were some of the nicest plus most competent people I've ever met. They knew their stuff and they are absolutely dedicated public servants, and everybody's trying to work around look around the corner, what's coming at us, are we ready for it, are we going to get caught with not being prepared for things that are as plain as the nose on your face. So that was a cool process.
Civil servants are the easiest people to criticize and make fun of. But when you actually got inside there and you met them and you worked with them, did it change your impression of them?
I have, like I said, never met a more consistently nice and competent group of people that burnt the midnight oil. They were there all of the time. This is not a job for the faint of heart, these jobs, because so much money is on the line, and making sure you're giving the best advice to the politicians, which is the job of a public servant, is here's the challenges you're facing, here's the opportunities, here's different ways of solving it. You're going to make the decision, but we have to advise you on a full suite of options. It's a formidable task.
Who's the minister?
Currently, we don't have the same minister. At the
but
time,
who was it? Yeah.
It was Jean-Yves Duclos, who was perhaps an angel selection for who should be the minister. He was superb. Now, there were three other ministers in that portfolio, but he was kind of the big daddy of the whole thing, and was superb because he understood the role of evaluation and data and trying to understand through evidence what is working and what isn't working. And that is so critical as we head into this next period where economies are slowing, and that means public revenue growth is slowing. So you got to make sure your dollars are doing the job they're supposed to be doing.
Did you ever get any FaceTime with him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
That was part of it.
Lots of time?
Yep. And with the Prime Minister and with other ministers. Part of the job of briefing the deputy ministers, preparing materials, and being invited in for stock takes. So it was a fascinating year and a bit.
Did you solve the economy?
Yeah. Which is, of course, why I could move back to Toronto, right?
But seriously, like what kind of... Can you give me one example of some piece of specific advice that you gave to the government that they could move on and it changed people's lives?
Well, in a kind of backhanded way, here's an interesting thing. You know, whenever we talk about the future of work, we talk about driverless cars. Oh, all these people are going to be drummed out of business because we're going to have driverless cars. But looking at the way the technology is advancing, looking at the way businesses are adapting it and putting it into place, looking at all the things that are going wrong with it, it is very clear that in the next 10 years, we are not going to see autonomous vehicles being the source of most of the way we haul stuff across the country. Why? Because number one, we just finished spending in the United States and Canada a whole bunch of money on replacing fleets. So nobody's going to let that investment just go meh and replace it immediately. These vehicles are very expensive. More importantly, any autonomous vehicle requires access to the internet everywhere they go. We don't have access to the internet everywhere in Canada. So are we going to, through a taxpayer system, finance something that citizens don't have so that haulers and truck drivers can have it? I don't think so. And finally, you need to have dedicated lanes because of hazards. Those dedicated lanes need clear markings so that the sensors can pick up where the trucks are. But in Canada, we have a lot of snow. So we're going to have a whole dedicated group of people clearing the snow off of one lane for autonomous vehicles? The answer is no. So this is not a near-term issue, but what we're seeing is all sorts of demand for immigrants and temporary foreign workers because we have a shortage of drivers because everybody thinks the autonomous vehicles are going to come in. So we've got this really weird, we have an opportunity to provide skills training and actually really good paying jobs for people, and especially people that are not like hugely educated. These are good jobs. And we can't find Canadians to do them because they're all convinced that the robots are going to eat the jobs. So that was a really interesting little vignette in this story about the changing nature of work.
What impression did you come to as to how quickly or slowly governments are able to respond to the information you give them?
Oh, they're way ahead of the curve on a lot of things in the public service. This is distinct from governments.
Okay.
Like the public service's job is to look around the corner. And so some of the best thinking I've ever come across was amongst my colleagues in the public service. How quickly does that filter up to political advice is a whole other question, and that is because of what is coming back down from the political system. The urgencies that need to be dealt with, the fires that need to be put out. How far ahead can I think about this thing when I've got a fire in my backyard? So timing is everything in vaudeville as well as in politics, but it's also everything in terms of advice, policy advice. And I found two things that were really striking. Sometimes files sit on tables for years and do not move. And one of those files would be the aging population. Like, this has been a slow train moving down the tracks, and we still don't really have an excellent answer to how are we going to meet the inevitable labor shortages that are coming at us through immigration or through skills upgrading. And that's a conversation we should touch on later on. But the other part is sometimes things move like this, right? There's some kind of political urgency. There's some weird kind of wave motion where you get a super wave, everything collides, and suddenly that thing has just happened. And so I saw both in the time I was there. And you can never predict what is going to move at rapid fire. But I'll tell you something, those public servants are there to move the whatever is, make that happen, to happen within hours. And it will happen.
How infuriating is it for you to watch how that all works, in as much as what might be really important will almost always take a back seat to what is politically urgent? Is that infuriating?
No, having been there, it increased my fuse before I blow up at these things, right? Like I felt like it created a longer fuse in me because you recognize that this is just reality, right? Some people are able to make enough noise to put a different issue at the front. And especially when you're looking at very long-term issues, it's really hard to get attention. It's also hard to get attention for things like, fixing the plumbing. I don't know if you have an old house, but I have an old house. And fixing the plumbing is the last thing you want to do because it costs thousands of dollars and you never see anything for the money, right? So it's very easy to defer fixing the plumbing. I did that recently, and I'm glad I did it, but I really can't say I enjoy it. But it needed to be done.
It's necessary.
The plumbing in the case of ESDC, 7% of GDP that's thrown out there, the plumbing in that case is a system of automated machinery that goes back 50 years. It's legacy machinery. And it has been MacGyvered to the ninth degree.
What kind of machinery?
We're talking about computer systems that have just been around forever and just patched and patched and patched, and it needs to be modernized. And we saw what happened with the phoenixization of salaries. You really don't want that to happen.
Still not fixed.
To transfers, right? So the whole there's both a kind of loathing of modernizing because you don't know what's going to happen, but knowing that if you leave it for too long, it could fail just because of the age of the legacy instrumentation that you're working with. So it's just one of those unsexy things that people just want to put to the side all the time that can come back and haunt you.
Having now spent the year, though, in Ottawa doing that work for the public service and for the federal government, do you feel like you left some footprints?
Yeah, and the biggest thing for me, I think, was this sense of leaving people with two ideas. The first idea is slowing growth, which is happening throughout the global north because of population aging, because of geopolitical frictions, because of climate events that slow down production. Slowing growth is the new normal. I call it sloth. It's not a recession, but it's much slower background growth than we have been accustomed to. And the closer you get to zero, the more everything feels like a zero-sum game. So all the politics of who's getting what gets way more inflamed. So more populism on both the right and the left, more demands for tax cuts because I'm not getting ahead, more demands for services because I'm not getting ahead. All these tensions that rise, and we are not ready for it, either politically or in terms of how we're going to deal with the inevitable labor shortages. So the takeaway that I hoped to leave with people is we need to maximize. It's like an incredible, unprecedented opportunity to actually put flesh on the bones of inclusive growth. So you can actually lift the economy by lifting the people at the bottom up. You can actually maximize the potential of groups that have been systemically uninvested in. Indigenous populations, the disabled, women, recent immigrants, visible minority populations, all the people that no matter what metric you look at, there's a gap between them and others. So if you start closing those gaps, you're actually lifting the economy from the bottom up. That is what inclusive growth is. And you don't do that, and you're literally leaving money on the table.
Do you think the government signed on to that philosophy?
I think they started to see the value in it. I think that's a slow burn message, but I think working with people throughout the system as well as people at the top, because frankly, when you've got something called a feminist government that says, based on a McKinsey report, we could have $160 billion more in the economy if women were treated the same as men, which is a bit of a fairy tale, but let's just say we're leaving money on the table by not pursuing equality, but it's not just for women, it's for everybody. And we could actually spend less money on social services and on healthcare and all of those things and see more revenues coming in because people are doing better if we invest in them. But we do have to invest in them in the front end, right? It'll pay for itself, but we actually have to go there. And that's going to be the challenge, to understand how we maximize advantage, how we maximize potential, and how we maximize our own power in an era where we're going to need all hands on deck. We're going to need everybody performing to their best ability.
Okay, can I bring you to present day now?
Yeah.
You're an Atkinson Fellow, right?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do now?
Funny you should ask. So the Atkinson has been really heavily involved in helping people see the role of workers and decent work in shaping the future. And this is an old story for them because Joseph Atkinson, the publisher of the Toronto Star, who is the name behind the Atkinson Foundation, was all about that. So we've just been going through. They gave me the award before I went and worked for the feds, kindly put everything on pause. And we've been talking over the course of the year, and there's so much noise about the future of work out there. Everybody's talking about the future of work. And I kept noticing I kept noticing how we're talking about work and how jobs are changing, how tasks are changing, what's disappearing, where are the workers in these stories? There's no people in these stories. This is like occupations, jobs, tasks. but not how we shape our work, how we shape the terms of service that when we click I accept shapes the nature of how much money that Uber driver is going to get, or how much that deliverer is going to get, or how much that mechanical Turk worker is going to get. We're not talking about the people doing the work. We're talking about the technology as if it is divorced from humans. So putting workers at the center of an agenda that says decent work can lift us all up is my mission, and it's their mission. And I'm very happy to have found a home that permits me to put center the future of work on the future for workers.
You know, we're 100 years removed from the Winnipeg General Strike, so we know that 100
Right.
years ago, that was a pretty important time in the history of the labor movement. So it's kind of a weird question to ask, is this a particularly important time in the history of labor to be figuring this stuff out? But is it? I am kind of curious about that.
Well, okay, you know, I think it was Mark Twain that was supposedly said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
It rhymes, yes.
I'm not sure he actually said that, but that's
Good quote.
Yeah, it is a great quote. And we're doing a lot of rhyming these days. So the labor share of the economy in all sorts of countries is at a low. And it has been falling for some time. And corporations, there is a handful of corporations that are approaching monopoly status, right? More and more corporate concentration. So less power for workers, more power for corporations. And the corporations themselves, it seems to be harder to govern them because they're globe straddling, and often those corporations are bigger than the economies in which they operate. So it becomes really difficult to negotiate with them. So instead of it being at a national level, at an international level, we are rhyming with what happened 100 years ago when workers had been protesting already for 50 years, for putting limits on the hours of work, for ending child labor, for having maternity protections, for having minimum wages, for having all sorts of minimum standards of decency in the workplace. And in 1919, which we are actually marking at the end of November, the 100th anniversary of the first time 44 nations came together. 44 nations of governments, businesses, and labor. This is the important thing about the ILO. It's the only institution in the UN that relies on tripartite agreement. There is no movement forward without business, labor, and government agreeing on how to move forward. And 44 nations in 1919 came together and said, this is what we're striving for, and we're going to do it. Big ideas, big visions. Flash forward 100 years, or the Winnipeg General Strike. By the way, the Winnipeg General Strike was started by the Hello Girls. They're the ladies that work the telephone switchboards, and they called out to their friends that are garment workers, women, and retail clerks, women, and by noon there were 30,000 people on the street, and more came afterwards. And what did they want? They wanted the labor laws that we had enforced. They wanted minimum hours, maximum hours of work. They wanted minimum wages. They wanted basic social protections. And they wanted the right to collectively bargain. So these are old stories. We're seeing all of them again now with the gig economy. We're seeing them all again with technological so-called advances that are creating working conditions that look like the past, not the future. And so we're seeing also workers coming together across national boundaries, understanding our plight is the same, and we are fighting huge corporations, and we've got to rebalance bargaining power. In fact, when the OECD, the Organization for Cooperation and Economic Development, or the World Bank, or the International Monetary Fund sing with one chorus of voices saying what we need now is more inclusive growth, this is exactly what they're talking about. We need to rebalance power, because it's become too imbalanced. Too much stuff is marketized, and too many people are losing power in being able to have agency over how the future is unfolding. And for my part, with the Atkinson, my goal in putting workers at the center of the future of work is reminding us of our power, reminding us of our possibility to have agency in shaping that future. And I can't be more excited because I think this is the moment. You're seeing social movements erupt everywhere, right? You're seeing the Fight for 15, Me Too, the climate strikes, Idle No More, Black Lives Matter, all these social movements that didn't exist a few years ago, and suddenly you're seeing people on the streets in Chile, in Lebanon, in Hong Kong, all over the world. People are just erupting, saying no to the status quo. So how are we going to shape it? It's not enough to expose what's going on and oppose it. We have to propose new things, and that's what I'm hoping to use the fellowship to do, is to talk about what can we propose to make, to situate ourselves in a landscape and say, there's many paths here. What do you want to choose to do? Let's do it together.
As you figure that out, I hope you will come back and visit us again and tell us all about it.
I really hope I get to do that, but thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you.
'Twas a delight. That's Armine Yalnizyan, who's been away from these parts far too long, but we're happy to have her back now. Until next time.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.